The paper made a sound I still remember, a soft, dry scrape against the inside of her apron pocket, like a leaf being crushed in a Bible. We were standing in the washroom just before supper, with the windows fogged from the kettles and the smell of lye soap still on our hands, and I saw her fingers close around that folded letter as if it were warm enough to burn her. Nobody else noticed. The men were coming in from the barn. The little ones were thumping their boots against the step. My mother was lifting a pan of potatoes from the stove. But I noticed, because I had been watching her all afternoon. When an Amish girl hides a letter, it is not always because the letter is wicked. Sometimes it is because the truth inside it feels too large to hold in two hands. And that evening, I watched her decide whether she would carry it alone or confess it before the whole room. My name is Katie, and I grew up Old Order Amish in a home where most news came by mouth, most promises were spoken face to face, and a letter could still change the weight of a day. I share these stories because I know many people look at our way of life from the outside and imagine it is simple. Sometimes it is, sometimes it is not. If you have ever kept something hidden because you did not know how to tell the truth kindly, I think you will understand this one. I was 19 that winter, old enough to be trusted with real work, and still young enough to believe I could tell from a person's face what was happening inside her heart. The girl I am speaking of was not a child. She was a young woman from a family we knew well, quiet in the way some people are quiet because they have been taught to listen before speaking. I will call her Anna, though that was not her name. She had come to our place that Thursday to help my mother with apple butter and mending, because her mother was laid up with a cough that had settled deep in her chest. It was one of those January days when the cold seems to make every sound sharper. The pump handle squealed at sunrise. The wagon wheels cracked over frozen ruts. By 9 o'clock, the laundry on the line was stiff as boards, and my youngest brother laughed because one of his shirts stood by itself when he leaned it against the porch rail. Inside, the kitchen windows ran with steam. We had 2 kettles going, one for water and one for apples, and the whole room smelled of cinnamon, damp wool, and wood smoke. Anna sat near the table with a basket of mending at her feet. She worked fast. She always did. Her stitches were small and even, the kind my mother admired without saying too much. But every few minutes, Anna's hand went to the right pocket of her apron. Not deep, not obvious, just a brush of her fingers, as if checking that something had not fallen out. At first I thought it was a thimble. Then I thought it was a piece of string. But when she bent to pick up a stocking she had dropped, a corner of folded paper showed for half a breath. It was cream-colored, not tablet paper from school, not the brown wrapping paper we used for parcels. It had been folded twice and pressed flat, and there was a darker line where it had been opened and closed many times. I looked away quickly. In our house, you did not stare at another person's private thing. You did not ask questions just because curiosity came knocking. Still, I felt my eyes wanting to go back to that pocket. Around noon, my mother sent us to the pantry for jars. The pantry was narrow and cold, with shelves on both sides and the floorboards bowed in the middle. Anna went in first, carrying a lamp even though it was daytime, because the little window was covered with frost. When she reached up for the quart jars, the letter slipped out and landed near my shoe. For a second, neither of us moved. I saw her face change. Not in a big dramatic way. Her mouth did not fall open. She did not gasp. But the color left her cheeks as if somebody had pulled a curtain over the sun. I bent down and picked it up by the edge. I did not read it. I want to say that plainly. I saw only one word on the outside, because it had been written large and dark. Father. I handed it back to her. She took it, folded her hand around it, and whispered, "Please, Katie." That was all. Not please do not tell. Not please understand. Just please. A little word with a whole wagon load behind it. I said, "It is not mine to speak of." She nodded, but she looked more frightened after I said it, not less. That was when I understood the letter was not simply private. It was waiting for something. Or someone. The rest of the afternoon moved slowly. We stirred apple butter until my arms ached. We filled 23 jars and set them upside down on towels near the stove. My mother hummed a hymn under her breath, the same 2 lines over and over because she had forgotten the rest. Anna barely spoke. When my brothers came in and teased us about the sweet smell making them hungry, she smiled a little, but it did not reach her eyes. In an Amish home, confession is not only a church word, it can be as small as admitting you broke a dish and hid the pieces behind the kindling. It can be as heavy as standing before the ministers, but most often it begins at a table, with ordinary people and ordinary food, while somebody's hands tremble around a cup of coffee. That evening, Anna's father arrived with my father after finishing chores at their place. He was a broad-shouldered man with a beard gone gray along the chin, the kind of man who could back a team into a narrow barn door without raising his voice. I had known him all my life. He was not cruel, but he was firm, and when he was disappointed, the air around him seemed to tighten. We sat down for supper at 6:30. I remember because the clock had just struck the half-hour, and my little sister was trying to count the chimes, but lost her place after 4. There were 11 of us at the table. Potatoes, green beans, bread, apple butter, and cold ham left from Sunday. The lamp threw a circle of yellow light over the plates, and outside the windows there was nothing but black glass. Anna sat across from me. Her hands were folded in her lap. She did not take bread when it was passed. My mother noticed. Mothers notice hunger and silence before anyone else. "Anna," my mother said softly, "you worked hard today. Eat a little." Anna reached for the bread, then stopped. Her eyes went to her father. He was talking to my father about a broken harness strap, not looking at her at all. The letter made that sound again, paper against cloth. I felt my own stomach knot, though I had no right to be afraid. It was her secret, not mine. But sometimes, when you sit close to a person carrying fear, you feel the edge of it scrape against you. Anna stood up so suddenly that the bench shifted under her. The room went quiet in the way a room goes quiet when it senses weather before the rain starts. Her father looked at her. "What is it?" She pulled the letter from her pocket. For one moment she held it with both hands, flat against her apron, as if showing she had not hidden it any more. "I wrote this 3 weeks ago," she said. Her voice was thin but steady. "I meant to give it to you. Then I kept it back. That was wrong." Nobody moved. Even the little ones seemed to understand that this was not a time for scraping forks. Her father looked at the paper. He did not reach for it. "A letter to me?" "Yes." "Why did you not speak?" Anna swallowed. "Because I was afraid I would cry before I said it right." That sentence stayed with me. I have thought of it many times. There are truths a person can write because paper does not look back at you. Paper does not frown. Paper does not sigh. Paper waits. People do not always wait. Her father held out his hand then, and she gave him the letter. He did not open it at once. He looked at her face, then at the table, then at his own hands. My father cleared his throat but said nothing. My mother reached down and took my little sister's spoon before it clattered to the floor. Anna's father unfolded the letter. His eyes moved over the page. Once, then again, slower. I did not know what was written there. Later, I learned only enough to understand. Anna had been asked by an aunt in another settlement to come stay for the spring and help after a baby was born. That part was ordinary. The hidden part was that Anna wanted to go not only to help, but to breathe somewhere else for a while. She loved her family. She respected her father, but their house had been heavy with sickness and worry, and she felt herself growing hard inside from never saying she was tired. She had written it because she could not make herself speak it. That may sound small to some people. It was not small there. In our world, your place in a family is not something you toss aside because you feel restless. Work is shared because it must be shared. Need is answered because that is how a home survives. To say, "I need to go away for a little while," even for good reasons, can feel almost like saying, "You are not enough for me." That is why she hid the letter. Not rebellion, not deceit for pleasure. Fear of wounding the people she loved. Her father finished reading. The clock ticked 6 times, maybe 7. I remember the sound more than I remember breathing. Then he folded the paper, set it beside his plate, and said, "A daughter is not a horse to be hitched until she drops." That was his line. Plain, rough around the edges, but it broke something open in the room. Anna began to cry then. Not loudly, not for pity, just tears slipping down while she stood there with her hands pressed together. Her father pushed back his chair and stood too. He was not a man who embraced easily in front of others, but he put one hand on her shoulder. "You should have told me," he said. She nodded. "I know. And I should have asked sooner." That was the confession nobody expected. I looked at my mother, and her eyes were wet. My father stared down at his plate, but his jaw had softened. The little ones were confused, because the danger they had felt in the room had turned into something else, and children do not always know what to do with mercy when it arrives quietly. Anna sat down again. My mother passed her bread without saying a word. This time, Anna took it. She spread apple butter on it with a shaking knife, and for some reason, that simple act made me want to cry too. Not because everything was fixed. Life does not fix that quickly. But because the letter was no longer burning a hole through her pocket. The truth was on the table, where everyone could see it, and nobody had died from seeing it. She did go to her aunt's place that spring. She stayed 7 weeks. When she came back, she looked rested in a way I had not seen before. Her mother was better by then, and her father had hired a neighbor girl 2 mornings a week to help with washing. That might sound like nothing. In a household that counted every coin and every pair of hands, it was something. I think about Anna whenever people ask whether Amish life is all obedience and rules. There are rules, yes. There is obedience, yes. There is also pride, tenderness, fear, stubbornness, and love trying to find words before supper gets cold. We were not people made of wood. We felt things deeply, sometimes too deeply to speak them well. What I understand now is that hiding a truth does not always mean a person wants to lie. Sometimes it means she does not yet trust the truth to survive being spoken. That does not make hiding right. Anna knew that. I knew it too, standing in the pantry with that letter between us. But I also learned that confession is not only about admitting wrong. Sometimes confession is opening a door and finding out the person on the other side has been afraid too. If you are carrying something you need to say, I cannot tell you that it will be received the way Anna's letter was received. Some truths cost more. Some people do not answer gently. But I can tell you this: a hidden thing grows heavier in the dark. It asks for more room each day. And sometimes the first mercy is not that someone forgives you. Sometimes the first mercy is that your own hands are finally empty. If this story stayed with you, I would be glad to have you subscribe and come back for more of these plain stories from Amish life, told as honestly as I know how. And I would like to ask you this. Have you ever written something down because speaking it felt too hard? You do not need to tell the private part. Just tell me whether paper ever helped you find your voice.